Hi, and welcome to another Strixhaven draft replay with Rigel B. My name is Rigel, and today I have my second Strixhaven draft that I'm bringing you. Okay, looking at this opening pack, there are some cards that stand out. I haven't played with this Blex or the Pest rare yet. And early on in the set, I like to play with the rares so that I get a better way of evaluating them. It's entirely possible that either Lightning Bolt or Tenured Inkcaster or Witherbloom Pledge Mage, Heated Debate. There's lots of cards here that could potentially be better than it. But like I said, I like to gain some knowledge firsthand. So early on in the set, I'll prefer taking the rare just to get the playing experience. Okay, looking at the second pack, we have an Eliminate that jumps out. We have a Pest Summoning, another Witherbloom Big Fatty there. But I think it's between the Pest Summoning and the Eliminate. Normally I would just take Eliminate pretty easily, but having taken this Vexing Pest with pick one, maybe I should be taking the Pest Summoning. As far as the difference in power level between Pest Summoning and Eliminate, it's not as great as you would think. These lessons that are, decent cards on their own right are actually pretty high picks. It's pretty valuable to have lessons that are pretty decent to go fetch. That being said, I would take the Eliminate normally. Eliminate's an excellent card. But we're just going to try this out. And here, there's a Blood Researcher, which fits perfectly into this plan. There's also Tenured Inkcaster, and the Tenured Inkcaster is pretty strong card in this archetype. I'm not sure exactly which one I should be picking, but when in doubt, I'm going to take the cheaper card, the card that is both the colors I expect to be, so that I'm cutting that. This pack is a little bit, could be a warning sign, as it's only the fourth pick in, and there's no real Witherbloom cards to speak of. There's some fine playables, but you see a lot of blue cards in the Snow Day, the Divide by Zero, the Biomathematician. Those are all excellent cards, and maybe Quandrix will be where something we should consider. But for now, I'm going to stay the course and just take a quality 2-drop. That Combat Professor is an excellent white card as well, just to give it a shout out. But that's not something we're looking into moving into. But if future packs continue to be dry on Witherbloom and heavy on Quandrix, maybe we'll switch it up and move into that. We'll see. Okay, looking at this pack, there's a few options for us. There's a lesson card. There's Tezzeret's Gambit, which could play out pretty decently if I come up with more Blood Researchers, or Tenured Inkcasters, various other things. Leyline Invocation. I think this Leyline Invocation's a pretty fine card, but stronger in Quandrix. This Silverquill Pledge Mage is a pretty nice card too, though it's a little bit stronger in the Orzhov colors, but still works well as far as the lifelink being able to combine with Witherbloom effects. But I think I'm going to try out this Tezzeret's Gambit. I can play it whether I go into Quandrix or stay in Witherbloom, because of its Phyrexian mana. Alright, here there's a Fractal Summoning. There's also this Auric Lore Mage. I think this Auric Lore Mage is a pretty decent card, and in particular, it could play decently with this Tezzeret's Gambit, or if I get any Tenured Inkcasters in the future. But it's a little bit awkward in that I don't necessarily know I'm going to have a lot of instants or sorceries that I want to go fetch, and doing so thins your deck of those spells, so you can hope to top deck them. But that being said, a 3/3 that can start growing itself is, it's decent. Here I have a choice between this Quandrix land or the Silver Quill Pledge Mage, and thinking there's some chance that I might head into Quandrix, I go ahead and pick up the land. And here I have the decision between Pest Summoning or Rise of Extus. And I think my decision here might be a little bit of a mistake. I should probably just take the Rise of Extus. But thinking that I might go into Quandrix if the cards play out well, I take a card that could get played in either one, the Pest Summoning. And the Pest Summoning, with the start I have, is stronger than it might normally be. I have 2 excellent cards to combo with it. The Rise of Extus is an excellent card, though, and I already have several lessons and no learn spells. So, potentially I should have just picked that up. Here I have a choice between if I'm going into Quandrix, I should probably take the Serpentine Curve. It's a pretty decent card into Quandrix. I could also take another lesson, but I already have 3 lessons. Or I could take this Moldering Karak, which pairs well with my Witherbloom cards. And I go ahead and take that Karak just because I think it's a safer pick to stay with it. Okay, there's nothing here that I really want to main deck. This Professor's Warning could make it if I need. The Containment Breach it's a lesson card, but I find it's not too useful. Every now and then there'll be an artifact or an enchantment that you want to destroy, but I don't value it too highly. Lash of Malice is a good pickup. That's gonna if I stay in Witherbloom, which at this point it's looking likely. That's gonna be a quality removal card there. I pick up the Snow Day just in case I do end up in Quandrix. The other card, the Confronting the Past, that's really not playable and limited. So, okay, here we have a Jadzi. This Jadzi is a pretty decent card. I think it definitely belongs in Quandrix. You need the ramp to make it worth the 8 mana, and you need to have a high spell count in your deck. But that being said, it is pretty strong. I think for my purposes here, there's the Devouring Tendrils. I think that's the safest pick because I could play that whether I go Quandrix or Witherbloom. And right now it's looking much more likely that I'm Witherbloom. So, and it's a very quality removal card in Witherbloom. So let's pick that up. Okay, here, gotta read the rare. And it looks okay, but nothing special. The Divide by Zero is a pretty strong card. But I think this is a pretty easy Professor of Zoomancy for me. Professor of Zoomancy is pretty excellent. Okay, here I have a decision between this Symmetrist or the Spectre of Fens. And I'm not actually sure which one's the better pick. The Spectre of Fens plays really well in Witherbloom. Just having that repeatable life gain effect possible. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Symmetrist. I mean, 4 mana, 4/4 reach that can give a bunch of other creatures trample. That's a quality creature. Potentially it's going to be stronger than the Spectre of Fens. I'm not sure about that pick, though. I guess maybe I was also just sort of hedging that there's still some chance I could end up in Quandrix, because Quandrix continues to look fairly open. Several playable blue cards as well as Biomathematician, and no real Witherbloom cards to speak of here. I'll go ahead and I'm not sure which of these cards I should be taking if I were considering Quandrix. I'm gonna go ahead and take this the Biomathematician. Okay, here I have now I have a plethora of Witherbloom cards to consider. Tenured Inkcaster, Hunt for Specimens, Spectre of the Fens, and the Witherbloom land. And it's actually a pretty difficult position. I feel like this Hunt for Specimens could be the pick just because of how the makeup of the rest of my deck. The Tenured Inkcaster in a vacuum, it's going to be a much stronger card. But my curve's already pretty high, and I have several lessons to go fetch with no learn spells to go fetch them. So maybe the Hunt for Specimen would have been a better choice. I don't know. Mage Duel is a pretty excellent pickup here. That last pick, I didn't really have anything. Got another Biomathematician. Okay, here I have a choice between Field Drip and this Woe Eater. And it's a little bit tricky. The 7/6, it's a decent creature, and I do have these pest summonings that would play really well with it. But like I said, I have all these lessons and no ways to go get them yet. I think it's worthwhile to pick up the Field Trip. On this pick, however, I pick up another Field Trip, again thinking that maybe I'll be Quandrix instead of Witherbloom, as it continues to look open. But I think this is a mistake. I should probably just take the Deadly Brew. Yeah, I don't know how heavily I'm stuck in Witherbloom at this point. Maybe I could be Sultai colored. But yeah, I think I should have just taken the Deadly Brew with that pick. Deadly Brew is a pretty excellent card in Witherbloom. And I think it was definitely worth picking up. Here, there's not really anything for me. I don't have much playing experience with that plum card, but I don't think it's that great. So I just pick up the land on the off chance that maybe I'll be 3 colors and need it. Okay, here we are with the... We'll just pick up a Quandrix card just in case. I think the Arcane Subtraction is going to play better here. This late Hunt for Specimens is an excellent table for me. That's really something I needed. And now we're into the dregs. We're not likely to play the Biblioplex Assistant, but it is playable in some instances. Okay, this Valentin slash Lizetta, I'm not sure. This is an excellent card, and now yeah, this card is just bonkers. Not so much the Valentin, that side's, you know, pretty mediocre, but the Lysetta side of it just goes crazy, especially with cards like Tenured Inkcaster and various other life gain effects. You can really get your board out of hand quickly with Lysetta. So we're going to take that. And now it's much more likely that we're just going to be as straight Witherbloom as possible. We'll see how it plays out, though. Okay, looking at this pack, I think it's pretty easy. Mage Hunter's Onslaught. We're pretty low on removal, and so picking this up is going to work out well. The Pledge Mage, it'd be okay if I had more spells, but and maybe I do have enough spells because now I have some learn spells, and learn spells fetch you another spell, so that's nice. But I think it's an easy Mage Hunter's Onslaught. Okay, looking at this, I think it comes down to maybe Leech Fanatic or Necrotic Fumes, and I think picking up this Necrotic Fumes is pretty nice. Having a removal spell in your lesson toolbox is really valuable. And now I do have some learn spells that can go fetch it, so we'll pick up that Necrotic Fumes. Okay, this pack doesn't look great. There's not a lot here for me. I'll probably just pick up this Springmane Servant, as I do need a few more gain life triggers. Or there's not a lot of stuff that I'm gonna benefit for the triggers with. The Researcher and the Lysetta are the only 2 that I have so far. But with the Lysetta being so powerful, I do want as many life gain triggers as I can to be able to trigger that. There's no guarantee that it'll make my main deck, but we'll see how it plays out. Okay, here, now I have a second chance at this Rise of Exodus, and I'm definitely going to take it. I think this Emergent Sequence is a pretty strong card, as well as this land. I'd really like to pick up the land. But like I said, I'm pretty light on removal, And picking up another learn spell is going to be pretty excellent as well. I think this Rise of Extus is a very powerful card. Just having the exile removal spell and the card advantage of fetching a lesson. It is expensive, but it's very strong. All right. Well, there's not much I want in Witherbloom here, but this Zimone card, it's a very powerful card. Really, really strong. And with how my cards are shaping up, there is some chance that maybe I'll go Witherbloom and just splash that card or something. Here I pick up another Hunt for Specimen. I think that's excellent. That's going to play really well with my first pick Blex, and all the lessons that I can go fetch with it. Here there's not a lot for me. I could pick up maybe this Go Blank or the Servin. And I'm going to lean towards, I mean, it's possible that I'm not sure how main deckable Go Blank is. There's no sideboarding to speak of because I'm just best of one, so I'll need to test that one out more in the future, but for now I'll just take the Servin. And here we get a Witherbloom land. I'm pretty happy about that. I really wanted to pick up one of those. Second Lash for Malice is good. Like I said, I'm pretty light on removal right now. That'll be a nice cheap interactive card for me to have in the deck. Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and remove these blue cards, except for the Zimone. We'll see if that one makes the cut. Okay, now I have a choice between another Lash of Malice or a Leech Fanatic. And the Lash of Malice, it's a card that's going to get worse in multiples as you'll run out of targets. So while the first two I think are pretty excellent, the third one's going to have pretty diminishing returns. And picking up a nice 2-drop that gives lifelink or has lifelink, it should be all right. Here I'll pick up the Professor's Warning, though it's not making my main deck. And here we'll just pick up this Revitalize. These, you know. Okay, nothing for us here again. Okay, so now deck building. We've got just a little bit of decision to make. Namely, do we splash the Zimone? And I'm sort of feeling like it's worth it. I have the 2 field trips to help me get to 8 land. And once you get to 8 land, it's just pretty crazy how powerful they can be. So as far as my mana base goes, I have to decide whether I want to play this Archway Commons or not. And I think I don't need to with the Quandrix land, the island, and the campus guide. Just those 3 sources should be good enough for me to support my splash card. And then do I want a 17th land? Do I want to cut a card to play a 17th land? And I think with the campus guide and 2 field trips, and not a lot of 5 and 6 drops, I think I can get away with just 16 land. It is true that I have a lot of learn spells that go fetch lessons, which make you a little bit more mana hungry, but I think I should be all right just playing 16 land. That might be a little bit greedy, but I think I can get away with it. Okay, we're here for round 1 with this Witherbloom deck that is splashing blue for Zimone. Looking at our opening hand, seems perfectly serviceable. Nothing too special, but 2-drop plus ramp into Rise of Extus and a nice cheap interactive spell. Looks pretty good. We draw another tap land. We should have time for that, maybe on turn 4. Looks like a Witherbloom Mirror. They start with a Hunt for Specimen into a Pest Summoning. All right, so they have the typical Witherbloom card so far. We draw another field trip. I think that means that I'm probably going to want to get this fractal summoning, as I have another field trip in hand, so I'm going to be ramping up on lands. It could be that the fractal summoning may end up being the most valuable card here. The fact that I have 2 more learn cards in hand means that I should be able to get some of these other ones as well. Maybe I wanted to get Pest Summoning first in case I wanted to play a copy of that before casting my other field trip, but they casted Pest Summoning, and now I think I'll just stay on defense with my 2/2, try and not trade damage. We'll continue ramping, and now I think it's a good time to get this Pest Summoning. You'll sort of want to have a Pest Summoning before you get that Necrotic Fumes anyways, so that you have something to sacrifice. Or, it's not really sacrifice, it's exile, I guess. So they play a Daemogoth, and with all the pests that they've accumulated, this Daemogoth is actually pretty threatening. I think I'll go ahead and use the Rise of Exodus to deal with it right away. Having drawn this Zimone is pretty nice. That if they're short on removal, that should play pretty well. I think it's okay to pick up a Necrotic Fumes here now, as opposed to the last Pest Summoning. I just want to make sure that I have a removal spell for anything bonkers that they might be able to play. I think it's going to be the safest option. Honor Troll. This card's not too threatening. They are pretty close here to getting it to be a 4/4 Vigilance, but I have this Fractal Summoning that might be able to hold it back, as well as occasionally if I need to chump. And now I've drawn this Mage Duel, so it's possible that I just want to use the Mage Duel to answer it. It might be a nice, easy way to get it right now. The Mage Duel might not be able to take care of the Fractal Summoning if they get that big enough. It would have to be pretty big because I'll have my own Fractal Summoning, but thinking about what I could do here, I've got lots of options. I end up making a mistake here, and I just go with the Mage Duel and the Pest Summoning, because I just wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to use Campus Guide to get a land. But looking at this hand with all the action I have, the things that can make use of lands really well, and Fractal Summoning and Zimone and Amplimancer, I think it would have been really smart to go ahead and use the Campus Guide to put a land on top. And with the ability of the Mage Duel to be cheaper after you cast a spell, I should have definitely reversed the order of those and gone Pest Summoning into Mage Duel. Even if I wasn't going to cast a Campus Guide, I would at least have mana up for Lash of Malice on their turn. But yeah, like I said, I think I should have gone Campus Guide, Pest Summoning, and Mage Duel and put a land on top. Then I could have made this Fractal Summoning a 5/5 here. As it is, I just go ahead and use it as a 4/4. I'm sort of hoping that maybe if they have any sort of removal spell, they'll be tempted into using it on the Fractal Summoning token, so that then my Zimone would be clear to wreak havoc. But as it is, they draw a land, so they can make a Fractal Summoning of their own as a 5/5, so they're not going to be too tempted to use removal on my 4/4 necessarily. Here, now, you know, we've missed land drops a few turns in a row, which I'm not complaining about. We have tons of spells, tons of gas, and the board is fairly stable. It's not too bad. So that's nice, but also I wouldn't have minded hitting that land drop, just so that I'm closer to. I also have the Scrylands in addition to the Amplimancer and the Zimone, so I can make use of my mana pretty effectively. I have to debate whether or not it's worth Necrotic Fuming the 5/5, and I don't think it's worth it. I'll be able to double block it at some point. I'm not too worried about it. So I'll hang on to this Necrotic Fumes for something that's a little bit more impactful. Now I play the Campus Guide, and I go ahead and decline fetching another land. It would be nice to get up to 8 land for Zimone, but if I draw nothing but spells for the rest of the game, I'm not going to complain about that either. So I go ahead and decline getting the land. if they don't have removal for the Zimone, I'm just gonna start drawing cards. Our board is pretty stabilized. I'm sort of holding on to these Springmane Servant just in case I happen to draw my Lysetta, and then I can use the Servants to trigger it, or even if I just draw a Blood Researcher and want to use the Servant to trigger it. Here I debated a little bit, paying life for the Tezzeret's Gambit first, just to see if I could draw a land in the top 2, and then I could make a land drop, and then go ahead and activate Zimone off of that. But in the end, I decided to just get my value while I could, guaranteed with Zimone. Draw a card. There's not enough pressure for me to feel compelled to risk anything there. So now we get the land. This Tenured Inkcaster, the Amplimancer is a perfect spot for me to put the counter, and I definitely want to cast this before I cast my Tezzeret's Gambit now. As now I'll be able to proliferate on 2 of my creatures. And yeah, I'm still just holding off on this removal spell. I don't feel any pressure to kill a 5/5 and start getting in. Though I might soon, after I've proliferated and made a 5/5 of my own and a 4/4 that I can pump up, I might start getting aggressive soon. Okay, so we'll lead off with this Tezzeret's Gambit. We just have to decide if we want to pay life or not. And I think that, let's see, if I pay life, I would have access to 5 mana. I don't think I'm going to be attacking with my Amplimancer this turn. So it's just whether or not I want to play a 5-drop, and I don't have any 5-drops in my deck. So then I guess it's whether or not I want to leave up Lash of Malice while I play a 3-drop. And given their board, it doesn't look too important right now, so I just decide to pay with mana. And now we get this Blex Vexing Pest. That's going to grow my pests, which is nice. There could be some argument to actually using the other side of the Blex in a situation like this. Our board's pretty stable. We have a decently high life total. If we cast the other half, we might be able to net like 3 cards, paying 9 life or something like that. It could be, but we have so much gas in hand already. Like, we're way ahead on cards. We have a stable board, if not the better side of it. And we have 6 cards in hand versus their 1. We have some Scrylands out. Our position's looking really good here. And I think it's time that we can go ahead and start closing out this game, getting aggressive by using the Necrotic Fumes on the 5/5. I kind of want to use the Necrotic Fumes on the 5/5 now, because if I attack with my Amplimancer and have it pump, it can become an 8/8. And so their 5/5 and 3/4 would make a nice double block on it. Whereas if I take care of that, they're not going to have a good double block on it. They would have to they'd have to block with a lot of creatures in order to take it down. And I'm gonna go ahead and attack with this 5/5 as well, because if I can trade the 5/5 for one of their bigger creatures, that's gonna make all their future blocks. I mean, it trade for the 3/4, so then I could start getting in with some other creatures. And, you know, there's some chance that they don't block, fearing some sort of combat trick of mine. The most common combat trick in this deck is Fortifying Drought. So if they went for Moldering Karok and the 3/4 on my 5/5, they could risk getting blown out by that combat trick. So they decide not even to block here, which makes the attack even better. Though I would not have minded if they went for the double block and I had to trade it off for just their 3/4. This Crushing Disappointment, it's a card that's pretty aptly named. I don't think it's a very good card to it's, you know, it's decent, but 4 mana to draw 2 cards is not really where you want to be. But that being said, you know, it's still card advantage. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and start continuing my aggression. last turn, I don't know if they were playing around a trick, but if they think I have a trick, they might be scared of various blocks here. And now I have Lash of Malice up too, so depending on how they line up their blocks, I might be able to use Lash of Malice to blow them out. As they're blocking right now, I would just use Lash of Malice to finish off whatever creature isn't killed by my Symmetrist. But they're also looking to take a decent amount of damage here if I do just pump my Implementor, so maybe they'll make another block. With the blocks that they have lined up now, I could even potentially use the Lash of Malice on my own Implementor before activating it to make it 12 powered instead. So it looks like they are going to come up with another block here. And now I have the option of using my Lash of Malice to save my 5/5. Which I think is probably going to be more useful than killing their Dina. So that's how I'm going to use this, because my 5/5 had encounters on it, triggers the Inkcaster, which is really nice, and it's just a huge creature that they're still going to have to deal with. So I think it's definitely more valuable than... saving my 5/5 is definitely more valuable than finishing off their Dina. And so now I have the option of just pumping my Implementor or developing more to the board. I think it's okay to just develop more to the board. We're going to have a pretty overwhelming board position. I mean, there is some argument that my board position is so dominant already that I should be playing around some of the I think they're mythic rares that can wrath my board here. There's one in black that's 8 mana where you choose a creature and destroy all the other ones. And then there's also the white-black blot out the sky that for 8 mana can be used as a wrath. So it's possible that I was just so far ahead that I didn't need to run out more creatures, and should have just stayed with that. But those, like I said, those are mythic rares. I think it's worthwhile to just go ahead and make sure that I can try and get a kill next turn, maybe. They have an Onslaught to take down my Implementor and get lifelink and flying, so they get in there. But now they only have one blocker. I have a lot of attackers and some triggers off or at least one trigger off the Inkcaster. We're going to get a big attack in here. They're at 17. Just with those, that's 14 damage if they block nothing. After doing some... And then also the drain from the Inkcaster. So after doing some math, I realized that if I just attack with everything, they're going to have to chump the 5/5. They can't take like a profitable block on my Campus Guide or something like that. And after they chump my 5/5, they're going to be down to 1. So, like I said, pretty strong position. It's going to be difficult for them to get out of that. And now, like I was saying, the only ways that I see them getting out of this position is with one of those 2 Wrath cards. So I probably should not be playing any more creatures onto the board. So this play here is a mistake. I play out the Servant and the Lash Fanatic. And that, there's really no need to do that. Or I guess I don't play out the Fanatic, I just play out the Servant. And that way I can leave up Scry, at least. But yeah, they concede. We get round 1. I'll see you next round. Okay, it's round 2. We're currently 1-0 with our Witherbloom deck, splashing Zimone. Looking at our opening hand, we're certainly happy with this. We have both colors mana, perfect. We have our strongest card in the deck in this Lysetta. And we have a curve 2, 3, 4. Can't ask for more than this. That 10-yard Inkcaster draw is a pretty excellent draw, as it's going to pair really well with our Lysetta. We will need to get a 5th land for it, but looks like we're up against Quandrix. I've found Quandrix to be one of the more powerful archetypes if I were to rank the archetypes. I've seen a lot of Quandrix decks and or Teamer decks that are quite powerful. Okay, I think the best thing to fetch here is just going to be the Pest Summoning. This could enable me to go Pest Summoning in a Mage Duel on some future term if I want to, and also just the summoning tokens are going to play really well with the combo of Lysetta plus Tenured Inkcaster. We'll just be able to start growing our team. Okay, they have a Symmetrist. I draw a land, which is great. I think my best use of this turn is just to use all of my mana by casting the Tenured Inkcaster. And that'll set me up well to, on some future turn, play out this Lysetta and attack with the Amplimancer in order to get immediate counters on my creatures. Eureka moment. They're gonna spend their turn. Oh, and it looks like they've missed a land drop, so that's good for me. Maybe we can pull ahead a little bit. It's a little bit tricky to decide what I want to do here. There's some argument for me to just go, say, Pest Summoning into Mage Duel and get rid of the Symmetrist to, first of all, like, their board, I'm going to be able to attack through it a lot easier without that Symmetrist on the board. But also, the main removal that green has is in the form of fight spells like Mage Duel. And so if they don't have that Symmetrist out there, they're going to have a lot harder time dealing with my Lysetta. So I could conceivably try to get it off the board. But what I decided to do instead is just play the Lysetta and make an attack with the Amplimancer. Just going ahead and starting to accrue the value of +1/+1 counters here. And this combo is just so powerful, the Tenured Inkcaster plus Lysetta. They decide to go ahead and block here with the Symmetrist, which at least lets me know that my Lysetta probably won't be dying this turn at least. Drakengard Elite, this is another excellent card. It can really get out of hand quite quickly. And I would... Drakengard Elite is going to be a problematic creature at some point. I would really like to use the Mage Duel to take it down. And my original plan was to go Hunt for Specimen here, into Mage Duel, into an attack with both creatures, triggering Lysetta twice. But with the stop there, I know that they have some sort of spell. And in particular, there's some cards that could make this fight not work out quite right. If they have Arcane Subtraction, then my Mage Duel is not going to be able to take down the Drakengard Elite. If they have, let's see, I guess Big Play and Fortifying Drought, the fight spell would still be able to work. But with the Arcane Subtraction, at least, it wouldn't work. And I do feel like the Arcane Subtraction's their most likely card to have here. It's pretty commonly played in these situations, and they have 2 mana left up. So I decided to change my plan and just go for another Hunt Specimen. But this is also a mistake, as I realized that there are cards that can make my attacks bad here, and so I don't actually even want to attack. If it is just Arcane Subtraction, I would want to attack with Lysetta, as the counter that it's going to get would mean that it would survive. But if they had one of those other combat tricks like Big Play or Fortifying Drought, then they could get rid of my Lysetta with some blocks. And I don't want to let that happen. So I end up not attacking, which means that I probably just should have played a Pest Summoning instead of the Sengit Hunt for Specimen. So I sort of bungled my way through that turn a little bit, unfortunately. And they did have the Arcane Subtraction, so it's good that we dodged that and didn't go for our Mage Duel. Meaning that we hopefully will be able to take down this Drakengard Elite in the future. But it could get tricky if they have enough spells and then are able to leave mana up on my turn. I won't know when I can fight it down. And it does look like they're the teamer colors. And they have an excellent card here, Igneous Inspiration, to get rid of my Tenure Deancaster. That really breaks up my combo. Really unfortunate result for me. And then it's also just gets to fetch a lesson. Really powerful card. But it looks like at this point they are tapped out, so I will have a window of opportunity to get rid of this Dragon Guard Elite, which is good because it's getting out of hand rather quickly. So this turn I definitely want to use the Mage Duel, so then it's just a matter of, do I want to play a Pest Summoning in Mage Duel? Do I want to play a Campus Guide into Mage Duel? And I decided just to go for the Pest Summoning because I want to go ahead and make an attack here with my Pests, allowing them to block if they want to, but that will grow my team. So basically I'd be trading a Pest in order to get a +1/+1 counter on the rest of my creatures. And they decide they don't want to block. It's possible that my turn could have been better using just playing Campus Guide, putting an island on top, and then using the Mage Duel to fight down their creature. I don't get the discount price on the Mage Duel that way, but it would have guaranteed that I was drawing a land next turn. Quandrix Pledge Mage, this is another card that can get out of hand in these Quandrix decks. Quandrix decks are usually chock full of spells, and especially with especially when they're teamer colored, then they're even more spell heavy usually. I do draw a land, and now I have to decide if I want to use this Necrotic Fumes on one of these creatures, and if so, which one, in order that I can start getting an attack in. And I think that in the long run, the Pledge Mage is going to be the more problematic creature. It's true that this colony is going to grow when they get to 8 mana, but they have missed land drops at times throughout this game, so they would have to draw 2 more lands before that gets out of hand. So I'm going to take down the Pledge Mage, and I actually make a mistake here in that I was thinking that I was sacrificing a creature in order to cast this Necrotic Fumes, which isn't the case. It's an exile effect, so I'm not going to get a trigger off of my Lysetta here when I choose the Pest token. I'd played the Campus Guide beforehand thinking that, oh, I'm going to grow my team, but that just wasn't the case. I'm still willing to sacrifice a Pest here to grow my team, so I go ahead and make the attack with everything. And maybe it would have been better for me to have just sacrificed the Campus Guide instead of the Pest, as the Pest could have attacked that turn, and in the future, the Pest dying does grow this Lysetta, so it has a little bit of relevancy there. This Rutha Mercurial Artist that they played, this is a really powerful card. Just super strong. Allows them to copy spells that they cast. Here I'm just going to play some creatures before I make some more attacks with my Pest tokens. Again, trying to trade Pest tokens for +1/+1 counters. I'm not willing to attack with my Lysetta here. I don't want to let them double block. Yeah, in addition to not wanting the trade, they could also even have tricks, which would make my attack even worse. So just the tokens is good. And they continue to just take the damage, not willing to let me get my +1/+1 counters. But it does mean that we're pressuring their life total slowly but surely. And they do draw land. That's going to give them the 7th land, which it's an important land for them. I'm glad that it's tapped, comes into play tapped, because there are a lot of really powerful 7 mana spells out of blue-red, like Creative Outburst, Elementary Mastery, or Elemental Mastery, maybe. And also just any spells with Rutha out there, they're gonna be super mana hungry because they like to play 2 extra mana on any spell that they cast. So drawing land is good for them. Now they didn't equip their team pennant. It takes 3 mana to equip, so that means that they either have a 3 mana spell or greater that they want to cast, or it could be a cheaper spell that they want to copy with the Rutha. So cards that fall into that category, they could have Bury in the Books, Divide by Zero, Heated Debate, these kind of cards. All of them mean that I don't necessarily want to go for this Devouring Tendrils right away. I would, you know, if they couldn't have anything, I would want to get rid of this Rutha as quickly as possible with this Devouring Tendrils. But I can't play that trick into open mana. So instead, we're just going to activate our Zimone and make the same pest attack. The pest attack could turn out to be not great if they just bounce my Lysetta and eat 2 of my pests, but I think that it's not a disaster. It's not a complete disaster, so I go ahead and make the attack. And here it looks like they had a heated debate to get rid of my Lysetta, but it does mean that they have to bounce their Rutha to do it, so at least they're not killing that pest and they only get to eat 1 pest. I still get in for 3 damage. Which means I'm continuing to whittle away at their life total, and this adds 2 more bodies to the board here. So I'm presenting quite a board for them to try and deal with here. They get their 8th land for Scurried Colony, so that's 6/6. It's pretty irrelevant as the size of the creature doesn't matter as much as the number of creatures they have. And they go for a Leyline Invocation and then concede. Yeah, they don't have enough blockers to survive. So we picked that one up as well. Let's keep it going with the next round. Okay, we're going into round 3 here. We have 2-0 record so far. Looking at our opening hand, it's serviceable, but nothing spectacular. Looks like we get to go up against a high mythic ranked player. It's always fun to have a challenge. So far, looks like we're up against Quandrix, and our Lash of Malice gets a good target here. That's nice. So far, our draw steps haven't been too spectacular. Just a couple of land when we already had a land-heavy hand. So that's not playing out too well. I could easily see us running out of gas quickly and not having enough stuff to do. Okay, so it looks like they're actually Temur colored. As far as tricolored deck goes, I think this is the one that's most frequent and best. The Biomathematician, it's a strong card as well, especially in multiples or with other things that generate fractals. But even on its own, 3 power for 3 mana split over 2 bodies is pretty good. And then this Cultivator, I think this is a really strong card in the Quandrix archetype. A 4 mana 3/4 that ramps you and mana fixes. Well, I guess it doesn't mana fix, you just get green or blue, and you needed that to cast it. So you could get a second one if you have double colored spell like Snow Day or something like that. Okay, we've drawn a couple spells. They're not anything to write home about, but it's better than land at this point. Okay, not too worried about the Prismari Pledge Mage, but the Kelpie Guide, that's a strong card. Probably one that I'll have to deal with at some point. They make an attack with the Biomathematician. I think that it's worthwhile just trading my 2/2 for theirs, as if we ever get into a board state where I could attack with this Springmane Servant, having their Biomathematician just be able to block it is a little bit more obnoxious than if they had to block it with something else. Okay, we drew another removal spell, but we don't have much much in the way of creatures on the battlefield, so removal spells are always worse in that situation. They're great when you can be getting ahead on board and getting in some attacks, but and here, so I chose a fractal summoning with my first learn spell, and I'm gonna get this pest summoning with my second one. It's possible that yeah, I wanted to get a pest summoning before I got a necrotic fumes. It's possible that I should just get a necrotic fumes instead. I don't know. Or instead of getting the fractal summoning, maybe I should have gone pest summoning and necrotic fumes, the combination. But I just wanted to have, I wanted to get something that provided a big body on the board. As I kind of have to start applying some pressure to them because they have a Scryland and I don't. So the longer this game goes, the more likely it's going to tilt in their favor. So if I just focus on removal, that's going to create a much longer game than if I can apply a creature that can attack with. If they can't deal with it, and then I can pressure their life total, maybe I could get this game over before they can accumulate too much advantage with their Scryland. Here I decided to go ahead and offer the trade with an attack. There's no guarantee that their Pledge Mage will be able to attack me back, and my Servant isn't doing much on defense otherwise. And if they do decide to go for the block, if they don't have any trick, that's going to be better for me, as then they won't have an easy double block on my Fractal Summoning. I'm having a little bit of a debate here whether or not I want to play out the Fractal Summoning. The Fractal Summoning would be a lot better if I could get it to a 6/6, as red has a couple things that deal 5 damage. Red has Pigment Storm and Creative Outburst that both deal 5 damage, so it gives them more opportunities to deal with it just with one card. Blue also has a lot of bounce effects that can deal with the token, but I did want to try and minimize the cards they could have that could deal with it. In the end, I decided to just go ahead and get the 5/5 and hope they don't have something to deal with it, and maybe I could start getting aggressive. Like I said, this Scryland that they have could easily take over this game if I don't start applying some pressure. I could have spent last turn playing Pest Summoning and Campus Guide and maybe even put a land on top to guarantee that the Fractal Summoning was a 6/6. It would have pained me too much to put a land on top at this point, because I really need spells to work with, and so ensuring that I was going to draw another land really wasn't what I wanted to do. And then, knowing that I had no guarantee of drawing a land, I decided maybe I should just run out a 5/5 Fractal Summoning instead. Here I decided to use the Mage's Onslaught on their 3/4 so that I can start getting aggressive. Like I said, I can't just sit around and play a long game against their Scryland. They're going to get too much card selection and advantage out of it. I'm really not happy about having to use the removal in this way. I hate to use it against a creature that's not too relevant, but... And here they have an Arcane Subtraction to make my attack with the Servant look really bad. And it's possible that maybe I shouldn't have made the attack with the Servant, because this is a really bad result for me. But what I was thinking was that if I could trade off the Servant for the Pledge Mage, it's going to make it much more difficult for them to double block my 5/5 in the future. So if they had nothing, I kind of just had to be a little bit optimistic. In a vacuum, the trade would have been really good on this board, assuming they couldn't answer my 5/5 in another way. But as it was, it worked out really poorly for me, as not only did they get to eat my creature, but they got to go fetch a 6/6 of their own. So now I'm in a pretty tough spot. I've used 2 removal spells on creatures that were not that great. The Kelpie Guide and the Cultivator. The Kelpie Guide, it is actually pretty strong and probably had to be dealt with at some point, but the Cultivator certainly didn't warrant a quality removal spell necessarily. And now that they have a 6/6, it's going to be in my way, and they get to Mage Duel down my 5/5, it looks like, so puts me in a difficult spot for sure. They offer the trade here for the Karok. I could conceivably take the trade, but I don't think that's a winning game plan. Maybe instead, if I top deck removal, I can remove the 7/7 and then get a good attack in. If I just trade off my creatures, it's going to be very difficult for me to close out this game before they accumulate too much value with their Scryland. So I kind of need to keep my creatures on the board so that it can have a path to apply pressuring their life total. And you'll notice that I didn't play out my campus guide previously. The reason was that it wasn't too relevant on the board. The 2/1 body wasn't really doing anything, and I didn't know whether or not I wanted to fetch a land. If I drew, say, Zimone, I might want to use this campus guide to go fetch an island. But barring that, I really didn't want to put a land on top, as I need to draw spells. So I decided to sort of delay the decision a little bit. And now that I've drawn the island, there's really no reason for me to put a land on top, so I can run out the campus guide. Here, I really can't afford to put in a triple block. Like I said, if I trade off all my creatures, there's no way for me to apply pressure before their Scryland takes over. And it's just too easy for them to have a trick and really blow me out. So I decided to just go ahead and take it. Unfortunately, they are able to fetch out another Fractal Summoning here. That's going to make this game really difficult. As now they're going to have 2 big creatures that I have to deal with. But I do draw a Zimone, so this gives me a glimmer of hope. With these pest tokens, I can buy some time, and if I draw 2 cards a turn with Zimone, that could get me back into this game. So I now have a chance. I have an option here of attacking with the Karok to trade it off and gain some life, but I decided that it's not worth it. Oh, and unfortunately they have a heated debate for my Zimone, so I'm back to being rather hopeless here. Maybe if I had gone for the triple block the previous turn, they would have used their heated debate. And then they wouldn't have had it for my Zimone. I would have been in a pretty desperate situation, though, facing down their large creatures. But maybe that would have given me a chance. As it is, now they get to make a 9/9 Fractal Summoning. So I'm really going to need to get some removal spells now. Or if I drew my Lysetta, then chump blocking becomes a lot better. Or chump blocking with these pests. But without the stronger cards in my deck showing up, this is going to be a pretty difficult situation. Okay, so here I think it's probably best for me to go ahead and take the double block and the chump. This will put me up to 10 life, so I could conceivably take another hit from the 9/9 if I need to. Symmetrist, that's okay. It'll at least hold back their Pledge Mage if they have just a random spell. But now I'm going to have a decision to make whether or not to chump with this pest token. It's definitely scary going down to 1. There's a lot of things that they can have that can kill me, like Creative Outburst, Igneous, the Learn spell, and maybe a couple other things that deal damage to the head. So it's definitely scary going down to 1. But the argument for hanging on to my pest token is that if I do draw Lysetta, then chump blocking with the pest token becomes a lot better. So I think that given that, it might be worth it to just risk going down to 1 here and hoping that I draw some. Or if I draw like a removal spell, maybe having this pest token around is going to be useful. But also given the fact that I could draw a removal spell, maybe chump blocking and staying at 10 or going up to 11 would be useful. Not putting myself at risk of just dying to one of those cards. I decided to go ahead and risk it and go down to 1, see if I can't make a use of this chump block next turn. Unfortunately, they did have one of the burn spells to the head, and so I have to lose this game. So we've dropped our first game, but we still got hope. We're alive. We're going for the 7 wins still. All right, see you next round. Okay, we're here for round 4. After picking up our first loss, we're 2-1. And we get to play against another Mythic player, though this one's not nearly as highly ranked. Our opening hand looks pretty decent. We have this Blex that we get to combine with the Hunt for Specimens, which we can probably fetch a Pest Summoning with. And that'll provide a pretty decent board. And then we also have a couple of removal spells, which is excellent. We're playing against Silverquill. And Silverquill is at its best when it's built pretty aggressively, which it looks like our opponent has done. They've got a couple of 1-drops. And then these are the type of creatures that you want to back up with something like Guiding Voice, which they will usually use to go fetch the Inkling Summoning. Their game plan is really to get early pressure and combine it with evasive creatures. Silverquill really only works if you have a bunch of flyers and early pressure. So it looks like they're executing their game plan pretty well, as they have a couple of flyers and they've spent all their mana every turn of the game so far, the first 3 turns. It'll be interesting to see what they take here. The Mage Hunter's Onslaught, I wasn't necessarily expecting that, as I didn't have my second black, and it seems to me like Devouring Tendrils is just a better removal spell. I guess if they take the Tendrils, I can play it on 4 mana regardless anyway, so they're thinking maybe this one will actually be one they can prevent me from playing for a while. So I'll run out the Blex, just keep back their Star Pupil this turn, and then we'll start developing some of these pests to the board, maybe. Silverquill Apprentice. So that's going to be able to pump their flyers whenever they have spells, and it looks like they have one right now. This is the type of card that, it's not a great card, that Study Break, but it's at its best in Silverquill for sure. Just something that's tempo oriented, and they get to fetch another flyer. So it actually plays out pretty decently for them. My life total's getting pressured pretty decently, but I'm not too worried, and the Slash of Malice that I drew is an excellent draw, as now I get to go ahead and flood the ground as well as take care of the 3/1 flyer. It really stymies their offense a little bit. And I'm just waiting on the Lash of Malice because they're going to play this Inkling Summoning, and if there's any chance that they want to pump their Elite Spellbinder, then I'll get to save some life there. Okay, so they do have another flyer. They're adding another flyer to the board and pumping their Star Pupil. And then they make an alpha attack here. This is a little bit strange to me that they're willing to trade off their Silverquill Apprentice. I decided I'm not going to trade for the Star Pupil, as I don't necessarily have to trade a creature for it in the future. It's normally only a 1/1, and they're going to get to put that counter onto a flyer anyways. So I want to delay that a little bit, take less damage over the next couple turns. I draw Lysetta. That's a pretty excellent draw. I'm not, even though they are pressuring me pretty decently, I'm not too worried about my life total. I have Devouring Tendrils, which can answer a flyer and gain 2 life. I have the Servant, which will gain 2 life. These Pest tokens, if they ever die, can gain life, and the Blex, if it ever dies, can gain life. So I have ways of gaining life, and I can start applying some decent pressure to their life total here with this Lysetta starting to grow my team. They attack me down to 7. And they play a Spiteful Squad. That's actually pretty decent here, as it's going to hold back some of my better creatures, maybe. And when it dies, it's going to be able to put counters onto a flyer. I kind of want the Spiteful Squad to die now. I kind of hope that it dies before I have to use my Devouring Tendrils, so that they put those counters on a flyer, and then I can use the Tendrils to kill that flyer. So you might see me wait on Tendrils a little bit, and just play the Servant and pump my team. I don't know that this is correct. It's possible maybe I should just Tendrils down the 2/1, pumping my team, and then just sort of wait a little bit and take one a turn for a little while. But I think I can wait until after that squad dies to use my Tendrils. And I go ahead and make an attack here with the Pest, just thinking that, okay, if I trade with the squad, they put the counter somewhere. That's what I want before I use my Tendrils. But I'm not sold on this attack. It would be much better if when my Pest dies, I can pump my team with Lysetta. But also, it just means that I'm going to take more damage this next turn when they move this Spiteful Squad counters onto a flyer. And it's entirely possible that next turn I could just trade with the Spiteful Squad before I use the Tendrils. And so I would save life this very next turn of their attack. And you saw me consider attacking with the Blex Vexing Pest as well. And I think in hindsight, maybe I should have. Sure, it allows them to trade with the Blex instead, but the gaining the 4 life there could be relevant. Like, I only need to win by so much. I don't need to, and so gaining the 4 life would have made me feel a lot safer here. If this game goes a few more turns, I'm going to win quite easily. And so I feel like I probably should have made that attack, and either they take more damage or I gain 4 life and I have more time to make sure that I'm not going to die to these flyers. As it is, thinking about this turn, I could go Hunt for Specimen into Devouring Tendrils and pumping my team, but I decide that I kind of want to wait until I expect that there is a high likelihood they're going to block here with the Star Pupil and put the counter somewhere. And I decided I want that to happen before I use my Devouring Tendrils. So even though the Devouring Tendrils would grow my team in order to deal more damage this turn, I feel it's more relevant to let them assign their +1/+1 counter first, and then use my Devouring Tendrils to kill one of their flyers. And this way I get to kill a 3-powered flyer without letting them learn. So I don't have to kill the Eye Twitch yet. And I go ahead and use the Devouring Tendrils targeting my Blex, so that if they had any sort of instant speed removal in response to this Devouring Tendrils, they'd at least have to use it on my Blex, which would give me 4 life, allowing me to survive this next turn. So now I'm looking in pretty decent shape. I'm back up to 7 life, and yeah, there's nothing they can do. So we get to take this one in. So now we're improved to 3-1. And we'll keep it going in the next round. Okay, going into round 5, our current record is 3-1. And for the 3rd round in a row, we get to play against the Mythic player. This one's another numbered gamer. Looking at our opening hand, it looks pretty excellent. We have our most powerful card in Lysetta, and we've got the Campus Guide to give us our 3rd land drop, and now to give us our 4th land drop, to guarantee that we'll be able to cast out Lysetta. And we have a 2-drop into 3-drop into 4-drop. Really can't ask for more here. Looks like we're in the Witherbloom mirror. And I will just go ahead and cast this Campus Guide over the Leech Fanatic in order to ensure that I can hit my 4th land drop. There is some temptation to play the Leech Fanatic so that next turn I could play Blood Researcher and attack with the Leech Fanatic and immediately put a counter on the Blood Researcher. Here they come up with an Honored Troll. So at least we weren't going to be able to attack with that Leech Fanatic anyways. And we put the island on top. There's some debate between putting the island on top and putting Swamp on top, as I do have some double black spells like Mage Hunter's Onslaught. Maybe that's the only one. But then I also have the blue spell in Zimone. I just figured that I have a lot more black sources in my deck than I do blue, so go ahead and fetch out the blue source here. It would also allow me to play Tezzeret's Gambit without paying life if I want to. Here they make an attack with both, and I have a little bit of a decision to make. Normally I wouldn't want to. I'm thinking about taking the double block on the Honor Troll, basically trading my Blood Research for the Honor Troll. And normally I wouldn't want to make that trade, but they're going to be able to get it up to a 4/4 Vigilance very quickly with this Poet's Quill. And so I think that in order to stem the bleeding a little bit and buy me some time, it's a perfectly fine idea to go ahead and trade the Blood Researcher off for the Honor Troll. This Poet's Quill that they played, I feel like this is a very powerful card, quite strong in these archetypes. The lifelink is super relevant. And then the fact that it learns when you enter the battlefield too, it just makes it a really powerful card. I go ahead and get the attack in. My Campus Guy doesn't do anything on defense. And I think it's best for me to just go ahead and use all my mana to play Lysetta. Yeah, it'd be too mana inefficient to do anything else. They attack into my Lysetta with their Amplimancer without having played a land first. So that means that they're representing a trick of some sort. And the most common trick to be played in these type of decks is the Fortifying Draught. They could also just have a Lash for Malice and be willing to trade 2 for 1, but they did leave up the green mana, so that argues for Fortifying Draught. And so now I have a decision to make. I could play the Tenured Inkcaster, pumping up my Lysetta, which would allow me to attack through a Fortifying Draught, as I'll have a 5/5 and they could only represent 4 power. So that has some relevancy there. Alternatively, I could go Field Trip into Leech Fanatic, thinking that extra land that I get would allow me to go next turn Tenured Inkcaster into an attack and pumping my whole team, which has a lot of appeal to it. Another option, I could just use the Tezzeret's Gambit and Leech Fanatic, but I definitely want to wait on this Tezzeret's Gambit until I have some counters on my creatures and can proliferate them. So I think it's best to go with the Field Trip and a Leech Fanatic here. And as far as what to fetch, I think a Pest Summoning is probably the best option, as with Lysetta, going wide is really great, because I'm going to be able to put +1/+1 counters on all of these creatures. And like I said, with the Fortifying Draught, I don't want to make an attack here with the Lysetta, allowing them to go ahead and remove it. It would get rid of, their creature, the Fortifying Draught, the Pest, but I still don't think that's a worthwhile trade for me. I'm willing to attack with this Campus Guide because they have that removal spell that only targets artifacts and enchantments in hand that they fetched with their learn. And so the Campus Guide is my only target in the deck. So I'm fine if they want to try and trade it off with one of their creatures or use a combat trick. I go ahead and make that attack. Here they go for an Expanded Anatomy on their Menace creature. And they continue making this attack that represents Fortifying Draught. And I'm not willing to lose my Lysetta to it, so that means we don't have any good blocks here. So I go ahead and don't block, and I'm not too concerned. They are dealing some damage, but I can pretty quickly gain a bunch of life back. This Leech Fanatic is going to grow, and my Tenured Inkcaster is going to start triggering. So I have opportunities to gain life back. And having drawn this Hunt for Specimen, I decide that rather than playing out the Tenured Inkcaster and getting an attack in this turn, as if I didn't want to attack with my Lysetta and lose it, as it could only get up to a 6 power with Tenure Dean Caster, putting the counter on it and attacking. That would mean that my only other attacker would be Leech Fanatic, and I'd have to put the counter there in order to attack with it, and get it to a 4/4, which it'd be fine, but I think I can do better by adding some more bodies to the board first, and then taking that line next turn. This will also give me the opportunity to go ahead and chump with a Pest and grow my team. I have the 1 mana open. I can chump with a Pest, grow my team. And then the following turn, that Leech Fanatic's going to grow me a lot of life, gain me a lot of life. So I'm definitely blocking the Amplimancer here. Question is, do I want to come up with a double block on this other creature? As I really don't value this Campus Guide very highly because they have the removal spell that gives them a Pest in hand. So if I go for the double block here and trade off my Campus Guide, that's just fine with me. And if they want to use the Fortifying Drought to save it, at least I've gotten that trick out of their hand and I won't have to worry about it anymore. That does have some appeal. Even though I'm losing 2 pests here and only going to be able to pay for one of the Lysetta triggers, which is unfortunate, but I feel like this is a worthwhile exchange for me. They go ahead and use the Fortifying Drought, and it looks like they use a Charge Through too to get some damage in. But I'm really not too worried about that. This next turn is going to be quite excellent for me, and I already get my Leech Fanatic's going to gain a bunch of life, and the Tenured Inkcaster is going to gain me a bunch more life. So my life total is going to go back up pretty quickly. I don't have to be too concerned about that. So now the only question is, do I have to leave the Pest back in order to chump the Amplimancer? And where do I put this counter? I think it's best, since I'm going to get a counter on the other creature anyways with the Lysetta, so I think it's best to put it on my lifelink and gain as much life right now as possible. And after figuring out that I'm going to be able to go up to 15 life, I decide I don't need to leave the Pest back to chump block anything. I'll be at plenty of life. Won't be at risk of dying. Famous last words. Okay, so they move the Quill over to make an attack with their Menace creature and then just manage a 4-drop. Yeah, I mean, I guess they did the best they could, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to survive this, as they only have 7 toughness worth of blockers. And when I make an Alpha Strike here, I'm going to get, if I leave up 4 mana beforehand, I'm going to get 4 +1/+1 counters on each of my creatures. And Lysetta also gives Trample. So in addition to the drain effects I get from the Inkcaster, and the Trample and the +1/+1 counters, it's going to be lethal no matter how I draw this up. I could even go for the overkill of using the Tezzeret's Gambit first to proliferate on all those. As it is, I just play out a Blex to get some counters on it as well. But there's really no way for them to survive, so it doesn't really matter how I take this turn. I'll just make sure that I pay for enough of these Lysetta triggers to make it lethal. But yeah, with them, I'm attacking for 30 damage, and they can only prevent 7 of it. So that's going to trample over for 23 total if they do even manage to put this 2/5 into combat, which at current time it doesn't look like they're doing. But it really doesn't matter one way or the other. Okay, so they don't even block, and we trample over for lethal. And we managed to make it up to 4-1 and take down a numbered gamer. All right, if we can manage to win next round, we'll make it into Prophet Town at 5 wins. Let's keep it going. Okay, it's round number 6. We're sitting on 4-1, going for win number 5 to make it into Prophet Town. Looking at our opening hand, it's perfectly serviceable. We have all of our colors of mana, and we have 2-drop and a 3-drop, and then we have the Tenured Inkcaster, which is a pretty strong card. Okay, we get a lead off with a Leech Fanatic. Drawing another land's not great, but hopefully we'll draw something to do with our turn number 4. and we couldn't ask for a better thing to do with our turn number 4, so that was awesome. We looks like we're facing off against Lorehold most likely. And we're starting off with 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop with 2 of our most powerful cards in hand, so looking pretty good. Okay, this Selfless Glyph Weaver. It's okay. I mean, I'll go ahead and offer the trade here. It can be used at some point as a trick to save one or more of their other creatures. But if a situation for them to use it doesn't come up, then it's a 3-mana 2/3, and that's not that impressive. So I go ahead and run out the Lysetta, really just hoping that they don't have a heated debate here or anything like that. And it looks like they didn't, at least not yet. So I've only drawn some more land now. Since our opening hand, we've only drawn 1 non-land, but at least it was the best non-land I could hope for. I'm definitely going to take this turn to play Tenured Inkcaster, so then it's a choice about what I'm going to put it on. And I'm going to go ahead and make an attack here with the Servant first. I don't mind trading this off with the Pledge Mage or either of their creatures, because they could sack the or trade with the other one. Just because it's going to make it harder for them to double block the Lysetta in the future. If I put this counter on the Lysetta, I could get the Lysetta up to a 6/6, which, unless they have a 4-powered creature, means that they're not going to be able to double block very easily. I could alternatively put the counter on the Leech Fanatic, thinking that it could attack in some situations where I wouldn't want to attack with the Lysetta. For instance, if they played a Burning Effigy, a 4/3, my Leech Fanatic could attack into that, whereas I wouldn't want to risk attacking with the Lysetta. Here they come up with a Venerable Warsinger. This card is excellent. It's a really strong Lorehold card. And I'm going to have to try to take care not to let them hit me with that too much. Right now they have the Silver Quill Pledge Mage that they can get back. Okay, and they have a Study Break here. I've continued to draw lands. That Study Break's going to work out really well for them, as now they're going to get to hit in with their Warsinger as well. And they've managed to fetch an answer for my Lysetta. So that played out really well for them. All I have to do here is pass with Scry up. With any luck, they think I might have a combat trick and they won't attack into my open mana. Unfortunately, they have an Igneous Inspiration here, and they decide to go ahead and take their turn removing my blocker that they could have attacked through anyways, but they didn't want to because they were fearing a trick. So they took this turn to remove my blocker. I feel like the turn probably was much better served using their 5-mana spell to get rid of my Lysetta. Lysetta is a much stronger threat here, and the Tenured Inkcaster is not much of a threat at all without Lysetta on the board. But they are getting back their Pledge Mage, so that's working out for them. And it's turning into a pretty difficult game as they have a pretty dominant board and they have an answer for my Lysetta already. And now they have this Arcane Tunnel combined with a Double Striker and Expanded Anatomy. I decided to leave this Tezzer's Gambit on top. It's going to grow my Lysetta a little bit, as well as dig me deeper. I get 2 cards out of it. So now it's just a question of whether or not I want to pay the life in order to leave more mana up, allowing me to possibly do more this turn. It's a decision between leaving 3 mana up and 4 mana up. And seeing as how I do have some 4 mana spells that I'd like to cast, I decided it's probably worth it to go ahead and risk just paying the life. This would also allow me to play out Zimone if I drew it. And I have access to both double black as well as double green because of this swamp in hand. So if I drew like a Mage Hunter's Onslaught, I could cast it. As it is, It looks like I'm just gonna get to play a Professor of Zoomancy and do nothing else, basically. My situation's not looking good. It's also not helpful that they have 2 spells in hand, so they're gonna be able to give this Pledge Mage flying the next couple turns. Combined with the fact that they have that Arcane Tunnel, it's a race where I really am in a difficult position, as I can't block their creatures. And they go ahead and take this turn using Expanded Anatomy on their Double Striker, and then giving it unblockable. I wonder if that's going to be a decision they regret, as with this Lysetta continuing to sit out there, I could potentially get some value off of it. If I were them, I would have been very tempted to deal with the Lysetta first. I imagine that they're not dealing with it first because that would allow me to draw a card, maybe allow me to get back into it that way, and they're not too threatened. They don't see a way for me to gain life here. Luckily, I drew this Mage Duel, so while it would be nice to try and take down their Double Striker, they have this Selfless Glyph Weaver that can just sack to save whatever I target. So instead of trying to kill their Double Striker, I decide I'm gonna use it to target their Venerable Warsinger instead with my Leech Fanatic. That way I'm gonna gain life off of the Leech Fanatic so I can grow the rest of my team. And I expect them to sacrifice a Selfless Glyph Weaver regardless of what I target, basically. So I think it's worthwhile for me to get the life link off of this. And I really shouldn't have played my land first. That was sloppy. It gives them perfect information about whether or not they want to sacrifice their Selfless Glyph Weaver. So yeah, that was a slight mistake. But as it is, we go ahead and gain life and get to pump our whole team. Their creatures have indestructible this turn, so there's no good attacks for me. But maybe in the future we can start to... we have a chance of winning this race now. We'll see. Okay, Blade Historian. And once again, they forego killing my Lysetta. They're just not wanting to let me draw a card. But Lysetta's so good. They should give me a random card instead of it. As it is, I drew this Devouring Tendrils. It's an excellent draw because it's going to gain me life. I'm going to get to pump my whole team again. And all their cards are face up, so I don't even have anything to worry about. And here I end up making a bit of a mistake. I'm deciding what's the most important thing to kill over there, and I decide that it's the Blade Historian. I had sort of just figured I was going to be using my largest creature to kill whatever I decided to kill, but with the decision to kill the Blade Historian, I really should have used the Leech Fanatic, as the Leech Fanatic has lifelink right now. And so I could have gotten an extra life gain trigger as well as life itself to grow all my creatures twice instead of just once. So that was definitely a mistake. But it looks like I'm going to be able to line up a pretty strong block here regardless. I mean, attack here. As if I just alpha, if they want to throw the Double Striker on my Pest in order to let their Double Striker survive combat, they're going to kill my Pest with first strike, which means I'm going to grow the rest of the team. And they're going to be forced to just chump with their other 2 creatures. So that's going to put me in a pretty dominant position. Yeah, in fact, with pumping first, even after they chump, they're going to take 12 damage. They're going to be down to 3. So that's... They're trying to figure out if they can make a double block here, but that would leave them dead. Oh, in fact, with the trample, of course, Lysetta gives trample, so yeah, there's no way for them to survive this turn, as I have too much trample damage. So we pick up the 5th win, we get to profit down. And we're going to try and keep this win train going next round. See you then. Okay, it's round 7. We're sitting on 6-1 or 5-1-1. Going for our sixth win here. Looking at our opening hand, it looks fine. We have 2-drop. The Hunt for Specimen could fetch us a 3-drop if we want, and then we have a 4-drop. And we have the Zimone, which is pretty strong if we make it in the late game. We get to play against the Numbered Gamer again, and they start with a mulligan on the play, which is never great for them. Hopefully we'll still have a good game. And this is something pretty unexpected. They start with a Lorehold land into a forest, so 3-color combination that's you're not going to see too frequently, the Naya colors. I led off with a forest, not sure whether I wanted to play Hunt for Specimen or Zimone on turn 2. As it was, I drew this Amplimancer, and I just want to play it and block, trade off. And they continue with another tap land here. I'm just going to run out the Blood Researcher this turn. And they can't seem to manage anything on their 4th turn, just playing a land and passing. Who knows, maybe they have Expel or some sort of removal that they're going to get to use their mana with. But I don't think it's worth playing around that and not attacking. Let's just get the attack in and develop our board some more. And they give it in. I guess they just had a dysfunctional hand and couldn't do anything, so that we get a quick win there to take us to 6 wins. Okay, so we'll be back next round to see if we can get to Profitopolis, get the 7th win. See you then. Okay, it's round 8. We're sitting on 6-1, so we're playing for the trophy this round. Looking at our opening hand, it looks perfectly serviceable. It'd be nice to have a 2-drop, but at least we have something we can do before turn 2 potentially with the Slash and Malice. And we do have 3-drop, 4-drop, and the Rise of Exodus is a nice card to top off with, so we got some stuff to do. And they did manage to throw out a 2-drop for us to kill with the Lash of Malice. Here they just passed the turn. It looked like they did have some stops though, so they probably have something. Could be removal, could be counter magic. Yeah, so they have a reject for our Blex. I'm not too sad about that being countered. Here they just passed with their mana up again. I suspect that maybe they have either like another counter spell or a Heated Debate or something. So I decided to run out this Moldering Karok instead of the Symmetrist. I think I'd prefer the Karok dying to the Symmetrist. I'm not sure though. So they manage a Quandrix Pledge Mage, and I'm gonna get a hit in with my Karok here. There's not really a 1-mana red instance that would punish me here. The best they could do is trade with the Pledge Mage. So I'll just keep developing, this time with the Professor of Zoomancy. If they give me the opportunity to trade with this Pledge Mage, I'm definitely going to take it. So I put this Zoomancy out here instead of the Symmetrist one more time, just offering that trade up. Okay, so they have an Igneous Inspiration. This is a strong card. And they get to fetch a Spirit Summoning and grow their Pledge Mage. They go ahead and make the attack in. And so I get to attack right back, and having drawn a land now, I think it's best for me to use my mana the most efficiently I can. I Spring Main Servant into Leech Fanatic. Also, this will just give me the opportunity that if they play a blocker that I want to kill with the Rise of Exodus and I draw another land, I might be able to just kill that and get in a pretty strong attack, adding 5 power to the board instead of just the Symmetrist. Okay, so all they manage is the Spirit Summoning, and then they leave mana up. But I don't have an option here anyways, as I didn't have a profitable attack into the 4/4, so I just lay a Symmetrist and pass the turn. Okay, Spectacle Mage. And it looks like they're going to continue leaving mana up. So I suspect that they probably have some sort of trick in hand. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, drawing the Hunt for Specimens. I think it's useful to get another removal spell here in this Necrotic Fumes. I have a decent board. If I can remove blockers, I'm going to be able to start getting some good attacks in. Again, they didn't use their mana, so I'm thinking if it was a removal spell, I would expect that they'd want to not let their mana just get wasted, and maybe like if they had a heated debate, I maybe would have expected them to kill the Symmetrist. So maybe they just have a combat trick. It could be Arcane Subtraction, it could be Enthusiastic Study. Either way, if I can get this Pledge Mage off the board, I think I'm gonna get a pretty good attack in, even if they have a trick or two. And playing against this color combination, they do actually have ways to get spells back from the graveyard. So I go ahead and get rid of the Igneous Inspiration, as I think that's the most relevant card for them to get back. Here I have a choice between the Fractal Summoning and the Pest Summoning. Fractal Summoning could give me a decent sized creature, but the Pest Summoning is going to give me a way to double spell next turn. If I want to use Necrotic Fumes, I can do that and Pest Summoning, which I might just be able to go wide and sneak in as much damage as possible, is what I'm thinking. So I go ahead and make the attack with the pests here too, thinking that if they want to spend the turn eating those, they're going to take a decent amount of damage, and maybe I can just make it through past the finish line, get lethal before they can cast all the spells they have in hand. Okay, so they did have a heated debate. Who knows if they had that last turn or not. But they get to take down my Symmetrist, and then it looks like they're going to eat one of the pests and line up a block on my Amplimancer. And with another combat trick, Enthusiastic Study, it means they're going to eat that one as well. But they take a significant amount of damage, they're down to 4. And I do have another removal spell in hand. So depending on how they spend this turn, it's possible I could make it across the finish line here soon. Who knows? They're giving it a good think here. And they do know about this Necrotic Fumes in hand. So we'll see what they come up with. Okay, so Pigment Storm. They managed to remove one of my blockers. And it looks like they get to leave 2 mana up as well. The 2 mana, it could mean that they have Arcane Subtraction. I have to decide. They do have this Fractal Summoning in hand. I have to decide whether I want to use this Necrotic Fumes aggressively here to remove a blocker and attack in, knowing that they might have an Arcane Subtraction. I have to decide whether or not that makes my combat worth it or not. I do think I have to be pretty aggressive here, as I'm pretty close to out of cards in hand. They still have 3 cards in hand, and they have the Scryland. They're not too far away from taking over this game. So I think it's going to play out better if I do take an aggressive course of action. Even if they have an Arcane Subtraction, I could still manage to make it across the finish line if they could either use the Arcane Subtraction to gain life or to eat one of my creatures. If I use the removal spell, I'm thinking that I'll use it on this Spectacle Mage, as there's a lot of really powerful 7 mana card spells in those colors. And so, as well as allowing them to cast this Fractal Summoning for more if they choose to do so. So I'm going to take out the Spectral Mage, and then if I make an attack, if they want to eat a creature, they're going to take 3 damage, blocking the Servant. And if they want to trade off creatures and just save life, then they only take 1. But it looks like they didn't even have that, so they're going to go down to 1, and I have 3 creatures that are all lethal on the board. So it is going to be difficult for them to get out of this. They go for a Historian and a Fuming Effigy, and so they only have 2 blockers now. I have a lethal attack. And I just go ahead and use the Mage Duel here. Didn't need to. I could just attack without it. So, but either way, looks like we're getting the trophy. Okay, so we pick up our 7th win. We make it to Profitopolis and pick up the trophy. Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing some of these drafts. I'll keep posting them for you. I hope you'll keep checking back for new ones, and maybe next time I can bring you a deck other than Witherbloom. I promise it. How about? Okay, see you next time.